recording is on.
Welcome back to another player interview on the channel. Today I'm delighted to be joined by young British talent Anna Popescu. Welcome to the channel, Anna. How are you?
Thanks, nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me on. I'm doing really well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, very well. A little bit bored in lockdown, but sort of getting used to it now, and hopefully we get the return of tennis very soon. And
yeah, for sure.
I'm sure you're looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's been so nice just being back on the court, able to practice the last week or two. It's just nice to have something to like leave the house for. Oh, I've got training at 11, and it makes such a difference. I think just have that structure back.
So how have you actually found lockdown? Because I know you're a player that spent a lot of time like traveling the world playing tennis and competing. So although it sort of interrupted your career, you must have enjoyed being back home and seeing your family and friends.
Yeah, definitely. It was very, very strange. I was about 20 minutes from Stansted when I turned around because I got emails in the car saying the tournaments were starting to be cancelled, and I was thinking, I don't know if it's worth flying. I had 3 flights to get to my tournament in Greece, and I was like, I'm not sure if it's worth flying because I think they're all going to be cancelled now, and then the next day they all were. So I was like happy with my decision, but yeah, it's been strange. I mean, I also spend some time at home when I'm practicing because my club is pretty close to home, but I've spent a period this long at home, apart from for an injury, for a while, I think like a few years, probably 3 years maybe now, and I haven't spent a period this long without actually having like a rest kind of break that I've had, I think, for 10 years-ish. So it's been really strange, but at the same time, I've definitely kind of come to realize that rest is a really healthy thing because I had a bit of a rest for a few weeks of lockdown, which I haven't had for a while. And just doing that, I felt very refreshed. So it's been strange, but at the same time quite positive for me. And in that sense, I feel I have more energy definitely than I had at the beginning.
So just going back to the start, what are your first memories of playing tennis, and did you have any early inspirations growing up? Any sort of players that you liked watching and aspired to be like?
Yeah. My first memory, I was at my primary school, and we used to have like after school club, and I was 4 or 5, and my mum worked at the school, so I think it was like a way to get rid of me while she was working, kind of finishing up after school. And it was sponge balls, and everyone just hitting the ball everywhere in a school hall. And then I joined. I kind of joined the local club, and I started playing. And my favorite memory is that we used to have sessions when I was at 6 in the sports hall, and we used to spend most of the time playing like stuff in the mud. And honestly, that was like what I think I looked forward to all the time. But in a way, I think that's a good thing because it was just it was just fun. It was being active, which I think is kind of the important thing. For younger people just to get involved. And then I kind of went from there. I joined my club, and when I was like 10, 11, they set up an academy where I was practicing. We had like the coach set it up, had played like ATP, ranked, and it became a lot more kind of performance orientated. But I think in a way that was a good thing because it wasn't when I was 6 that I was thinking of performance. It was like 10, 11, 12 I started to do it kind of more seriously. In terms of inspiration, I grew up also playing football. So I played football at Watford in the girls' academy. So I used to go to football matches, and I actually spent more time watching football than I did tennis growing up. But I remember like Henin, I used to watch a lot, and I used to really like. And I remember the 2 Wimbledon finals between Roger and Rafa, like 07, 08, those years. And I remember watching those, and they were ridiculous. And I think like it was around that age, kind of some 97 ones. So I was about 10, 9, 10, 11, around those years. But my earliest memories are watching Henin at the French Open, and I think that was a bit before. And then those 2 Wimbledon finals, I remember watching and thinking, wow. And I gradually kind of got more into tennis, and and then just kind of took it from there.
Yeah, I think them Rafa and Rogers matches at Wimbledon sort of transformed the sport, especially in the UK. So at this point, I usually talk about players going to university to study tennis or moving to America or a full-time academy. You mentioned that you had sort of injuries during your teen years, so you didn't get the opportunity to do that. So just talk about sort of them injuries and how you got into pro tennis and eventually turned pro.
Yeah, sure. So I played from about 12. I played a lot. I was coming out of school to practice, and I was going to tournaments. But I was definitely a late developer in kind of, if you look at most tennis players, because I played my first tournament abroad at 14, which is really old. A lot of kids are like 8 now when they're playing them. And I think I made a lot of progress between like the ages of about 12 and 15. Like I jump, and I'm not sure exactly, but I was around about top 10 nationally. And then I was playing in a national tournament in semi-finals when I was 15, and I fractured a bone in my pelvis, like lunging from forehand. And it just it was a really long injury, and it just sort of got worse and worse. I had that fracture to heal, and then I had a back problem, and then I had just problems getting back into sport, and it ended up being 3 years before I was back playing. Two years 10 months, and it's a really long time, and it was really hard. But I think at 13, 14, I was just absolutely enamored with the sport, and that it was all I wanted to do. And I said to myself at a young age, I want to just play sport for my job. If I could. So I kind of said when I was injured, there were moments where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get back and actually be able to play again, because it's a really long time. And it wasn't like I was this incredible junior, but I knew I would regret it probably for the rest of my life if I didn't give it a try. So when I was better I was about 18 and a half, when I was finally better and started to play tournaments again. But I'd really missed the boat for US uni, because they have a really tough eligibility rules. So I couldn't really go, which is a shame, because a lot of friends have gone that absolutely love it. But I said to myself, I'd play, I'd just see how it goes, and kind of go from there, And yeah, that was kind of my thinking. Just I'd committed kind of so much to the sport generally over my life, and then to get through the injury so much, and I knew if I just was hung up my boots, then I would really regret it. So yeah, I decided just to play and then see how it goes, and it's been hard, and it is not, I think, what I thought it would be, and I don't think it's what anyone actually thinks it is in a way, but it's been really fun at the same time, and so yeah, I don't regret that decision.
So you must be sort of proud to reach the stage of the career that you have, when you've talked about them long injury breaks and missing out on that experience of playing college, university tennis to get where you have. Winning 3 ITF titles last year and reaching ranked 32 in the ITF doubles. You must be proud to have got to this stage already.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at my family, no one plays tennis. A lot of people I meet ask me, and they're like, "Oh, so who plays tennis?" I'm like, "No one." And it was just something I loved and I wanted to do. And my parents have been so supportive, just in being like, "Yeah, if you want to do that, sure, we'll help you." And yeah, none of us know tennis. I came from a really small club, and I mean, I'm not a world beater, which I know, but I think I'm still quite young. I'm 22, and I'm into 500 and doubles now. Kind of off the back of nothing, and obviously missing out on a lot of development between the ages of 15 and 18. So why not? Why not just keep going and kind of see where I can get to? Because I've not done anything crazy, but I think I've won a few doubles tournaments. Made the final of the 2025 just before lockdown. So it's not too bad.
Yeah, you had a very good 2019, obviously winning 3 ITF double events. So just how do you reflect on that 2019, looking back? Did you reach expectations at the start of the year?
It was a kind of weird year. It took me a long time to get going. We had the new ITF rule changes, which I think threw off a lot of players, and they really weren't great for doubles players because they really made the getting into tournaments and stuff like that hard for doubles players. I think they kind of penalised doubles players more than anyone else. So that it was strange, and it took me a while to get going. I played I've had a very bad start of the year. I just couldn't get any form, and then I played some German team matches, which I loved. I was playing Nick Karlsruhe, kind of south West Germany, and I loved it, and it kind of got me going in the year. I started to string together a lot of matches. Obviously, played a lot of matches. I played some German domestic tournaments and kind of got some confidence. I won most of my matches, and then went from there. And then the end of the year, I did well in doubles. I had a final. I won one, had a final, had a semis, had another win. I had 2 wins in a row actually, and then I felt like I finished really strong, especially on the doubles court. It kind of got to a stage where it was just like I would go into every match and I'd feel so confident, that I had a very good chance for a result. So I would say it was just getting the matches really made the difference. And it kind of got the ball rolling. And I think as well, because I enjoyed being in Germany so much, that I kind of just used that positivity I was feeling just from that experience to kind of translate onto the court a bit more. So I was kind of happy with the year, but I felt like it took me a long time to get going.
So you're playing both singles and doubles. Does one of them take priority over the other? Or are you just hoping to play both disciplines for as long as you can and improve your ranking titles hopefully in both?
Yeah, that's a good question. I really enjoy both. I definitely I played a lot of team sports growing up, so I do really enjoy playing in a team. And I think it's the one area of tennis that is sad that we don't have. I know we have like Fed Cup and Davis Cup, and like now there's a new ATP Cup, and so are like playing for your country. But a lot of players, I think, do really enjoy the team stuff. They play like German league or French league or in the UK or there's the US swing, and all the players I've spoken to who love it. So I definitely thrive in that environment. So in that sense, I do really enjoy doubles, but I wouldn't say at the moment I prioritize one over the other. A lot of training is still singles based, but we do more and more double stuff. We kind of mix it, but it's not really one focus on the other. It's kind of, I guess, development generally, and then some double specific stuff, and then some single specific stuff. But I mean, at the moment, my doubles ranking is much higher. So yeah, if it came to a point where my doubles ranking was really high and I couldn't get into singles tournaments and only had to play doubles, like I'd do that probably. So I really enjoy both.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of interviews with doubles specialists and doubles players, and you start to learn about some partnerships don't work at all and some partnerships click and work straight away. And I just wonder what you thought was the key things to a successful partnership on the doubles court.
Yeah, $1 million question. I think the most important thing is that you've got 2 game styles that you have to kind of mesh and play. And I think the most important thing is that you guys together, you have your individual game styles and you have to kind of think of what your collective game style is, and it's about putting that on court. And I think I played a lot of doubles tournaments, and even in last year, obviously I ended with I think three titles, but I went on a run of losing 5 matches in a row first round, and I was thinking, what is happening? And I was changing partners the whole time, and I found like the players I didn't play well with were because we didn't quite play doubles collectively the same way. Like we'd have different ideas how to play, and so I think that for me that's the most important thing, that someone sees the doubles game the way you see it, and they want to play in a similar game style. So, for example, like some players are aggressive and they like to play lots of eye and they like to serve volley and all that kind of thing, and then other players, the more I'd say singles orientated players, might be more content to set the back and not kind of attack the net. So I mean, I like to play aggressive around the net, so I thrive with someone who kind of eye to eye with me on that and would also like to play aggressive around the net. And so definitely the best partnerships are the ones where we're between us coming up with a game plan of how we want to play, and then we like after the match we're reviewing what went well, what didn't, etc. And you're doing it as professionally as you would as singles. It's not just this extra thing that you do as well as singles. It's a whole kind of game style in itself.
Yeah. So moving on to a very sort of current topic in an important debate, I think, was the ITF tennis and the sort of problems within ITF tennis. And I think anything positive that's come out of tennis and lockdown, it's sort of that these problems have been highlighted in the media. And Dominic Thiem had some very controversial things to. I'm sure everyone's read about them, and I'm not going to quote them on it because I think there's a lot of these quotes got sort of misquoted in the media. I know the ITF are trying to put together a player council that people are currently voting for. You're a player, as I say, that's toured the world and played tournaments, ITF tournaments everywhere. And I just sort of wondered what your take on it was and the positives and negatives of playing ITF events in tennis.
I completely agree with you that it's really great that some issues have come to light, because I do think to an extent we just kind of don't always have optimum conditions, and we just kind of have to get on with them, and you feel like you can't speak out about them, and because at the end of the day, what can you do? You know, like it's either you play those tournaments or you don't play tennis, because it's not like our rankings are high enough that we can just play WTAs or something. I mean, I've had a massive range of experiences in the tournaments I've played, and you know, generally speaking, there are some countries who run the tournaments to make money from the players through charging X amount for the hotel room and putting little charges like everywhere. And those tournaments generally aren't the most player friendly. Like you can have physios, for example, who don't speak English or aren't actually physios. You can pick up an injury and you go to the physio and they don't do anything. They just sort of say, you know, or they don't really say anything. And that's kind of ideal. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you can have tournaments where they're run so professionally. You get a completely different feel as a player. You feel like you're cared for, and they're not just there to kind of extort you, which, you know, is the case in some events. So, I mean, I would say personally, I think, you know, tennis, there's obviously so much money at the top, the same as kind of there is in society. And I think if we could, I'm not saying that the lower players should be taking what the top players are taking, but I think it would actually be better for the integrity of the sport if it was more evenly distributed. And I'm talking at a certain level. You have players obviously 300 in the world, which is a really high level in a lot of sports, and they're losing money. And obviously players who are 1,000, you can't even talk about making money. And I think it's better for the sport actually if more players made money, because you'd get the players at the bottom would be able to be more professional. They'd be able to have coaches sometimes. They'd get less injuries because they'd have, you know, there was better physios, and they could have more physio treatment at home or whatever. And then the level at the bottom would be higher, and as a result of that, the level at the top would also be higher, because it's like a natural selection that the best players have to get through all the lower rank players. And if the lower rank players are better, the best players are better, and more people are then going to watch it. So I think for the top players to look at it rather than seeing it as we deserve the money. That I'm not saying that the players 1,000 in the world should be making 100 grand a year, but if they could make enough to maybe I don't know, maybe not at 1,000, but enough to be able to keep going and playing tennis, and they're not just being basically priced out of the sport. It would be good. It'd be good for the sport. It'd be better at the top, and you know, there is corruption at the lower levels that are like gamblers and bettors who approach players, and they're at the side of the court betting on your matches, and I've seen them, you know, and people would, if they knew, like, okay, if I work really hard and even if I got 700, I can maybe make a bit of money, they might not be tempted by you know, throwing matches or something. So I think for all elements of the sport, if we could just have a bit more at the bottom so that players kind of were rewarded for their ranking, and as they got higher, were kind of rewarded in line with their ranking, it'd be better for everyone, and I think it would protect the integrity of the sport as well. And I mean, just from the football point of view, I played a lot of football, like I said, and I was at, you know, in a Premier League academy, and I decided to play tennis over football, and one of the reasons was because I felt that, you could be a professional in tennis. And in football at the time, it was 10, 15 years ago. They all the football players had like 2 or 3 jobs to keep going, and they trained like a week. And these are the pro footballers playing for Arsenal or Watford or whatever. And I was at Watford, hence why I mentioned Watford. And now they're all on salaries. I don't know exactly what it is, but I think it's ballpark at like £30,000 a year minimum, and obviously that their training and their physio and everything is paid for. You look at a tennis player, and I'm 31 in GB, and if I was 31 in football, you're World Cup kind of squad level, I'd be making 30 grand a year. And in tennis, I'm losing not 30 grand, but I'm losing money every year. You realize that the sport really has to try to correct itself and try and make ways to make money across all the levels, and also filter some money down, because it's for the health of the sport and for the health of everyone. I think.
Yeah, it's definitely a sort of an important debate, because, as you say, with footballers, if they get injured as well, they're still getting paid, and
yeah, exactly.
They travel the world like you are on your own at times. And I think also another thing is, I think tennis in Britain's always been sort of seen as an elitist sport, and I think everybody, general sports fans and even non-tennis fans, think tennis players make a fortune, they're all rich, and it's not always the case, particularly for players like yourself, as you've mentioned. But I think the ITF Player Council is something that will hopefully bring out a lot of positives, because I think it's important that you hear the opinions of players, because at the end of the day, they're the ones suffering from the problem with the ITF, and if they can suggest reasons to improve it and ways to better it,
definitely.
It's the best way of the solutions. But if there's anything sort of you could change, or ways to improve the ITF, is there any specific things you've seen in tournaments that you would like to get changed?
I mean, there's a big, like I kind of touched on, there's a big variance between tournaments. So, in my experience, there's some countries who run unbelievable tournaments, and for me, like the UK is pretty good. France, really good. Germany, the one I did recently, was amazing. Portugal was really good, and not just trying to name Western countries, but that's kind of what I've found. And then in some of the poorer areas, like I kind of mentioned, the physios either don't speak English, or there's not really physios there for treatment. And I mean, I get a lot of injuries, so I need a physio. And there's a different level in the umpires. And I mean, if I was going to look at one, I mean, the obvious improvement would be a little bit more prize money towards the bottom of the sport. I think that would really help. And I genuinely personally think if you're 500-700 in the world at kind of anything, you shouldn't be losing money. When you see Federer's top Forbes list at $100 million,
yeah,
I don't think it's a great indictment on the sport that someone who's that good at 500-700 is losing so much money. So that would be the obvious one. But I think it would just be nice if the tournaments were more streamlined and there were kind of minimum standards for every tournament. So the refs were all kind of a standardized level. The physios the same. There was none of this, like at certain hotels we stay at, resorts, where if you don't stay in the resort, you're not allowed to practice, and it's kind of terrible. And you have to pay then to walk on the court, and then they just I know for that reason, but the players that don't, they're just like harassed. And I think that's right, because it's basically they're just making money off the back of you. And I understand a byproduct could be making money, but at the same time, I just think a standardized level of treatment would be kind of ideal, because you do notice a big difference depending where you play.
I've read through quite a lot of the ITF the players that have bidden to be on the ITF Player Council, and Tara Mu is one, and I saw one of her points that I thought was really good. And he has the idea of sort of player pension fund, when if you're paying your entry fee or you win prize money, that money sort of gets kept aside in a different pot that you can take at the end of each year or take at the end of your career. Because she says there's a lot of players that sort of dedicate their life to the sport and the pro for 10 or 15 years, and then in the sport they leave it with nothing. And she says even though that pot of money might not be a lot, it'll be enough to live off for a couple of months or enjoy yourself with, and it's some sort of reward at the end of each year, or at the end of your career, that you feel you deserve, really, because you've dedicated your life to the sport and kept tournaments going and
Yeah.
I just wonder what your opinion was on that sort of player pension fund that Tara
Yeah.
will try and introduce.
Yeah, I mean, I know, like I don't know a lot into it, but I know on the ATP side, I knew a doubles guy, and if he hit top 100 doubles, I think for 5 years, he would then receive a really good pension. So that was his aim, just so he was set up for life after tennis. I think anything like that would be awesome, because yeah, it's exactly what you said, that people just walk away having dedicated a lot of their life and a lot of money, a lot of resources into the sport, and then for them to walk away with nothing is tough. It'd be nice on certain rankings, or I don't know the best way to do it, but on certain rankings at a certain level, you could actually walk away with, like you said, some sort of pension or an amount of money afterwards. And yeah, in my opinion, something like that would be great. And I think it'd be like the tennis governing bodies just recognizing that the game is built on the masses, on all of us who are kind of grinding through the levels. Like there wouldn't be a sport without the players below 100, even though you're kind of made to think otherwise. Like they need all of us, and yeah, any recognition of that I think would go a long way in terms of making everyone feel kind of better about it, and like they get something back for their dedication, and also just from a financial point of view, like tennis is not, an easy sport to make money out of, and most of us, who will end their career in the negatives, and yeah, it'd be nice to have something, and we're all gonna have to go on for other jobs, I think. So yeah, definitely be nice to have something.
Yeah, so growing up when I was watching tennis, you always naturally just watch the Grand Slams and the major tournaments, because that's what's always on the media on the TV, and you don't sort of really hear stories about ITF players unless you really research and talk to them. And I started doing player interviews around a year ago. There's British players that sort of compete on the ITF tour all the time, and when you research really and talk to different people, you hear stories of them players playing through injuries to cover costs, as you said, having no access to physios, having to pay their own accommodation and travel to tournaments, and just overall not having a good experience really throughout the year, or losing money, as you've said you've experienced before in the past.
Yeah.
And I think it was a British player earlier that talked about this experience. He said when you're growing up and playing regional, national events, you think you're going to have a brilliant career and make money, enjoy it. And tennis is going to be a fantastic career. And then when you start doing it, you quickly realise it's not always the pretty sport, the brilliant sport that you're hoping it to be. And is that some sort of you've experienced that have come as a shock, and you have your difficult times in tour?
Yeah, definitely. Like, when, before I got injured, I was thinking, oh, I want to play pro, and I hadn't decided about university yet. And obviously, like I mentioned, I came out of the injury, and I was like, oh, well, I just have to play pro. I can't, obviously. I mean, the UK was an option, but it wasn't something I wanted right then. And I said, yeah, I play pro, and it was a shock. Just I don't know, there's just very little protection kind of for tennis players. There's no guidebook, but like I kind of touched on, there are tournaments where there's no protection from the people. If you always played in like the UK or France or Germany, or places where the tournaments are kind of quite well set up, they often like pick you up from the airport, and there'll be official accommodation, which is pretty nice, and you'll have transport and all that.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine. It's like a set up thing, but most of the time you end up in a country and you don't speak the language. I mean, we're really lucky speaking English because we can kind of get by anywhere, but you speak the language and you're like, you don't really know where you are, and it's just like, you realize it is quite dog eat dog. It is a struggle, and there are moments when being like in one of these countries where I've felt like more alone than at kind of a lot of other times in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But saying that, then as you do it more, you do start to meet other players, and you realize like we're competing against each other, but we're all in it together, so we're going through the same experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was a shock, because I grew up like probably every kid thinking, oh, I want to play Wimbledon, especially, and I want to play the Grand Slams, and if well, I'll have money. And you don't even, obviously as a kid, you don't really think about money anyway, but I didn't assume that it would kind of be like this, where even though I play like a relatively good level, I'm doing what I can to kind of make ends meet. I play team matches, which I get some money for. I work part-time on the side for a bit more money, and hit sometimes and stuff like that. And it's just can be a bit of a headache. I mean, my parents still help me a bit, so it's not like I'm completely on my own. But yeah, it's definitely, there's something in the fact that you just watch, that most people just see the Grand Slams and the glamours of it, and that's not reality. And like the other thing which I find really interesting is most people will ask me, when you run into people you knew a few years ago, they ask me what I'm doing, and I'll be like, I'm playing tennis, and they'll be like, oh, that sounds great, kind of thing. And I'll tell them it's a struggle, and they'll be quite surprised, and then they'll ask sort of what my ranking is, and I'll be like, low 500s and doubles, like I think about 1200 singles, but it's like 30 in GB, and they'll see that ranking and they'll be like, wow, that's amazing. And they think because of that ranking, you'd just be laughing and have life and making money, and the reality is the complete opposite. And so definitely, I would, if I was like advising either myself or a younger player, I would say like tennis isn't actually what you think it is, and unfortunately, and the money is at the top, and society is the same, unfortunately, as well. And I just think it would be good if more players were aware of that, and that is why I do think going to college in the US is a really great option as well, because most players don't peak before age 22, and it kind of gives you an investment straight back on your tennis, because you're getting a free uni education at a really good school, and you're better equipped, I think, probably to go and play afterwards, or go to university in the UK. I think, like, looking back, I mean, for me, it was a bit out of my hands, but maybe I should have gone to the UK. But yeah, I thought it was very rosy when I was younger, like 13 or 14, and as I've done it, I've realised it's quite a tough world.
Yeah, it's because I think it doesn't really help in the media as well when they're coming out. Roger Federer's like the most paid player in the world currently. Naomi Osaka's passed Serena Williams' money, and I think when people read that, they just straight away assume every single player that plays on professional tennis is rich. As you said, that gap in sort of prize money is massive. But anyway, moving on to sort of better times. If hopefully tennis, we get the return of tennis later on this year. Just sort of what are your expectations and your hopes for the next sort of 18 months in your career?
Well, I guess, like, first off, just getting back to tournaments and travel, I think would be awesome. I think it's going to probably be a bit longer because, it's still, I don't know, there's still a lot of coronavirus deaths in UK and US, for example. And, I think like they're probably going to have to wait until these are a lot lower before they're going to want people traveling around, because it's, I worry that tennis players are quite fit and young and probably could be like carriers of it, and just spread it again. Not just tennis players, but I don't think it probably will become international for a few months at least. But when it does, that'll be great. For me, I'm just looking at this year as an odd year. It's kind of a sabbatical almost. I'm gonna keep training this summer. We've got some domestic stuff. The WTA putting on a lot more British tours, which is great. So I'll be able to do those this summer. And then see what it's hard to say plans without knowing what the tournament schedule is going to look like. But if I'm looking 18 months, so the end of 2021, tournaments are back on at least from next year. Doubles wise, I would like to be, I don't know, at least top 400. I think like 200-300 would be 400. Yeah, probably top 400 would be great. That was kind of this year. I had, my first goal was to get into the 500s, which I did just before lockdown, and I had no points to defend until September. So I had a few months where I was hoping I would really push on and get into like the 300-400s. But obviously that didn't happen. So I guess, definitely would kind of look to continue that. And then singles, I'd like to, I think, I'd like to get into. It's hard to say, like on a time scale, but my first goal would just be getting into top 1,000. And then, it's just sort of, I guess, small incremental steps, but it's hard without a time scale, if you know what I mean. But yeah.
So just move on quickly to men's and women's tennis. I think on the WTA we've sort of experienced the best era of women's tennis in a long, long time, and you consider we've still got Kvitova and Halep, Serena Williams, the sort of old guard, and you've got the young crop coming through like Coco Gauff and Osaka, Andreescu, Kenin. I just wondered which players you liked watching, and have you studied any to sort of help improve your own game as well?
Yeah. I definitely watch and like try and learn, because I think just as the sport has gone on year, there's just the standard has just gone up and up, and there's so few weaknesses now really in the top players. Like they do quite impenetrable. For my personal favorite is Ash Barty.
All right.
I love kind of her attitude and personality as what comes across, and I love how she mixes up with pace, she comes into net, like has a really good forehand. I like that she throws in a lot of backhand slices. I mean that match against Sharapova at the US Open, where I think it was it love on one or something, or 1-1 or something.
Yeah.
Sharapova just could not deal with her slices.
I think people forget she's only 24 as well. I think a lot of people think she's quite old, but I think the crazy thing about Ash Barty's career is she went to play international cricket in a couple of years ago in the women's BBL for Brisbane Heat, and then came back and won the French Open straight away and got to world number one.
Yeah, insane.
Shows how naturally talented she must be.
Yeah, exactly.
But just quickly on players like Coco Gauff and Naomi Osaka. Obviously, Coco Gauff came through at 15-year-old and reached the fourth round of Wimbledon and the quarterfinal of the US Open at 15 or 16. And Naomi Osaka was another one that came through at the back in 2018 and won back-to-back Grand Slams and reached the world number one spot. And since then, she's sort of struggled to deal with that pressure, I feel, of all the fame and the things that come with being world number one of women's tennis. And I just sort of wondered how you cope mentally on the court if you're in a final or in really big matches that mean a lot to you. How do you sort of cope with that mentally?
Yeah, I thought you were going to say, how do you cope with your fame? I don't think I can compare myself in any way, shape, or form to Osaka, but because she's at a completely different level. I think what people who don't play tennis or sport underestimate is that it is a cumulative thing. Like you've done it for so many years of your life. It's not like if you took someone who's never played tennis or much, and then you put them in like a final in front of people, they would, probably feel horrified. But like I've definitely just grown up. Well, we've all have with pressure because you're playing matches week in, week out. There's people watching, and you play finals and you want to win, and there's always self-imposed pressure. It's a hard question. It's just kind of finding what works for you, I guess. And like for me, I try and keep a perspective on it of, yes, it's great to be in a final. Say a final. So say like my 25K final before lockdown, we'd for a Futures, quite a big crowd. I don't know how many, 100 or so people. And they made it into a really big event. They had commentators. It was videoed, and streamed, and it was like closer to a normal event than what we normally play. And like, of course, there's and it's definitely different to how most matches I play at the moment. But for me, I mean, I lost. Could argue I didn't do a very good job, but for me, I just put it in perspective of like how great it is to be in a final. Tennis, I love it, but it's not the most important thing in the world, So I try and keep it in perspective of if I lose, it's not really going to change my life, my friends, my family, like that's kind of what matters more. And then just, I mean, it's cliche, but I think just trying to enjoy it while you have it. You don't know what you're going to play for. For me, a big one is just, I'm grateful I'm not injured. I'm grateful that I'm able to play and kind of focusing on those things, and then just like there's obviously little things you can do in the match and just trying to breathe and stay kind of in the moment. And I think the most important one I found, especially in doubles, would just be really tactics focused, because that keeps you in the moment to just focus on what you're trying to execute every point and point by point, and then try to almost like be so focused on that everything else is just not really, everything in your kind of peripherals is just not a focus at all, because your attention is just on each point. But yeah, it's definitely the $1 million question, because the top players, I think, do all of that and cope with the pressures so incredibly well. And I think that's a big part of why they're at the top.
Yeah, I think the young players sort of come through and they just look fearless. I think you look at Sophia Kennan's win at the Australian Open, and the mental strength she had at that age was sort of frightening, really. And
Sure.
It's a weapon that could probably take her very far just in itself.
Yeah, I agree.
Moving on quickly to men's tennis, Djokovic and Nadal have shared the last 8 Grand Slams, and it's always a big question of sort of when will one of the next gen like dethrone the champions. And
yeah,
you look at the likes of Zverev and Tsitsipas and Medvedev, and I just wondered, don't know who you think's most likely to win a Grand Slam first out of the next gen group, and where you think that's most likely to happen.
I think at the moment Medvedev is probably closest. So, if I was going to pick one, I'd pick him. I think, my personal opinion, the one who'll end up with the most is, I would maybe go Felix or Aliassime. I like his game. I think he's really good, and I think he could end up with a lot, but I don't necessarily think he'll be first. I'd probably go for Medvedev.
Yeah, he came the closest last year, the US Open. I think it's just such a monumental task to get past Rafa and Djokovic over 5 sets is incredibly difficult. But lastly, on men's tennis, we've also got the race to be the GOAT and considered the greatest of all time. And there's that Grand Slam race between Djokovic, Nadal and Federer. And I always say a pivotal moment in this race was at last year's Wimbledon final, when Roger had them 2 championship points to go 6-2 with Djokovic. And since then, obviously, Djokovic has won that Wimbledon title and won this year's Australian Open to cut it to 3. And I just sort of who you think will finish with the most Grand Slams in the end.
Yeah, I'd probably go for Djokovic, because I think he has. He's a few years younger, so I think he's got a bit longer. And I mean, everyone wrote Federer a few years ago, so write him off at your peril, and write Nadal off at your peril as well, because he wins when no one thinks he can. But I think this lockdown definitely favors Djokovic over the others, just because they're getting older. Actually, Nadal's only a year older than Djokovic, but I think I'd probably go Djokovic. But I think a nice way of looking at it is saying Federer's the GOAT of grass, Nadal's the GOAT of clay, and Djokovic is the GOAT of hard courts. Like, because they brought so much to the sport, and like, I don't know, it's a shame to just say one's the GOAT and the others are not. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think if I was going to pick one, I'd say Djokovic at the moment. I think Federer's short. I mean, we've been saying this for years, but surely hasn't got years and years left. But also because they're all unbelievable. So yeah, I wouldn't put it past Federer.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like the Messi Ronaldo debate, where somebody always pick one or two. I think they've all sort of pushed each other's games to ridiculous levels, and I don't think Nadal would have been as good without Federer and Djokovic, and vice versa. They all sort of push each other on, and rather than pick faults of the greatest ever players, to sort of just appreciate what they've all brought to the game, really.
Yeah, completely agree.
But finally, the last question is, if you could achieve anything in tennis, what would it be, the sort of dream achievement for you?
Okay, are we saying like realistic, I assume?
Well, anything's realistic.
Okay, I mean, I'd say I think everyone's dream as a kid is to either win a Grand Slam or be world number 1. I'd say realistically for me, my dream would be, well, I say 2 if that's okay. It would be to play at Wimbledon, draw, whether singles or doubles, and to be in the Fed Cup squad.
Yeah, it looks great. I beat in the Fed Cup last year when it was in England in Bath, and a fantastic event, really, and you can see how much it meant to all the players to be playing in it, really.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
But yeah, thanks a lot for your time. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been sort of very interesting to talk about the struggles in ITF and from a player's specific point of view. But yeah, thanks a lot for your time.
Yeah, me too. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks a lot. Stay safe.